Hello everypony, Prince Alagorn of Aquilonia here, and I am back with some more of my Season 4 wishlist. Shadowbolts. Yes, I want to see the Shadowbolts. I want this to be a real thing. So writers, you may not have got into it this season, but, well, let's try for Season 5 then. In fact, I even have a perfect recruit for you. Yep, lightning dust. Frickin' lightning dust. But, I suppose I should go into a little bit about my own theories about the Shadowbolts. And, more specifically, their relationship with the Wonderbolts. See, in my headcanon, the Wonderbolts are kind of equivalent to the Thunderbirds or the Blue Angels. They're technically a military squad, even though they're mostly known for stunt performances. And, well, yeah. They're basically Celestia's pride and joy. They're the public face of her military. Shadowbolts, on the other hand, have always been Luna's thing. See, whereas the Wonderbolts are specifically designed more for entertainment purposes and to handle certain missions, namely the ones where the public would be most proud of, like rescue missions, interceptions, that kind of stuff. The Shadowbolts, not really. See, when Celestia and Luna made the Shadowbolts, they were thinking about specifically what the Wonderbolts can't do. The kind of things that are necessary in warfare, but that nobody really wants to talk about. And Celestia, being the kind, wise, and more peaceful ruler that she is, knew that these kind of missions were A, not only not suited for her team, but B, were the ones she couldn't necessarily okay herself, because they would break her own moral ground. So she delegated those kind of missions and their operations to Luna pretty early in their reign. Luna invented the Shadowbolts as a way to take on these kinds of specific threats and do these kind of dirty work, wet work, black ops missions. Whereas the Wonderbolts are the Blue Angels, the Shadowbolts are SEAL Team 6. They do the nasty stuff, they do the stuff that you don't really want to admit to in public, even though it needs to be done. And they do it quick, they do it fast, they do it efficiently. They do it with a great sense of killer instinct, and they get the job done and get the hell out as fast as possible. Now, the problem for the Shadowbolts was the Lunar Rebellion. Once Luna became Nightmare Moon, since the team was already aligned with her, and their loyalty was specifically to Luna herself, as she was the one that they directly answered to. Basically, Celestia was always completely hands-off with them. They ended up siding with her in the rebellion. So when the Nightmare Moon was banished, the team was left unsure whether or not it could even continue, because they weren't sure whether Celestia would be merciful to them or not. So they fled to the Everfree and have continued their existence there ever since in secret. Now, that brings me to the topic of the relationship between Nightshade and Spitfire. My headcanon with these two is that Nightshade originally started out as a Wonderbolt. Her family was originally Shadowbolts, but they didn't flee with the team into the Everfree when the Nightmare Moon was defeated. Instead, they convinced Celestia to let them remain on as Wonderbolts. So Nightshade has this whole backstory of pride from family heritage in her pocket. During her and Spitfire's time together as teammates, the then captain of the Wonderbolts decided he was going to retire. Nightshade and Spitfire were his two best flyers, so they were the ones competing for the job. Nightshade already had this sense of entitlement, so she also had a reckless streak in her too, because she thought, my family's been doing this forever. I can't get punished for anything I do. Wrong. Her recklessness ended up not only not getting her the position, but she reacted in a fit of jealous rage by basically punching Spitfire in the face and getting, well, demoted. Not court-martialed, demoted by Celestia. But rather than face on in a good diminished position, she decided she was just going to quit. Having her family background in the Shadowbolts, she kind of figured that maybe the team was still in existence, so she fled to the Everfree to find them. What she found was essentially just Stratus and, Descent there as the last two remaining members. Everyone else had either died or went home over the past 1,000 years. But once she was able to prove to the other two that she was perfectly capable, she ended up becoming their captain, and they started plotting their revenge by becoming a alternative stunt team to the Wonderbolts. That was always going to be their plan. They were going to try to upstage the Wonderbolts one day. It just never came to pass. Largely because Nightmare Moon returned and then got turned into Luna. Celestia, sensing the changes in the air, tasked Luna to go into the Everfree and try to find the Shadowbolts, if they even still existed, and recruit them back into the Equestrian Royal Military, which she successfully did, which means now you have the two rival teams being forced to work together while their two captains absolutely fucking hate each other. Which brings me to the next topic, which is Lightning Dust's involvement with the Shadowbolts. In my story, what would happen is we see the end of Wonderbolt's Academy, where Spitfire basically fires Lightning Dust, but she doesn't really fire her. Instead, they meet up later to discuss things. Lightning Dust says basically, if I can't be a Wonderbolt, I don't know what I'm going to do, and Spitfire basically refers her to the Shadowbolts as their newest recruit, seeing that her disregard for others is detrimental to her team, but probably an asset to the kind of things the Shadowbolts are tasked with. Now, the episode would continue from there to have basically Rainbow Dash run into her and notice that she's now in a Shadowbolts costume. She starts asking around and basically Lightning Dust explains the situation, which causes Rainbow to really be upset at Spitfire. She goes and confronts Spitfire and asks, why didn't you tell me even after I've told you about my experience during Nightmare Moon's return and having to deal with these people, with these ponies as illusions, that they're actually a real thing. Which allows Spitfire to go into the more technical details about how really no one is supposed to know the Shadowbolts are real. Except the Shadowbolts themselves and Luna. And then, after the argument, we have another scene with Rainbow Dash and with Lightning Dust, where they start talking about what happened in the academy together and basically agree to shake hooves and put their differences aside and turn what happened into an excuse for a friendly rivalry for the title of Best Flyer in Equestria. Basically, I want the episode to end with Lightning Dust and Rainbow Dash being able to still go to a bar together, hang out, have a few drinks, and be merry. Of course, with Spitfire and Nightshade, though, I don't want them to ever be on quite so friendly terms. Because, well, I just can't see it. Their rivalry is a little bit too deep for that. And basically, if you put them in a bar together and get the alcohol flowing, they'll try to beat each other to death with pool cues. So yeah, there's my next part of my wish list. But it's not the only Shadowbolts story that could be told, as we'll soon see.